I'm gonna break down frame by frame exactly how this guy does his two-handed backhand drive and why this shot is so important to have in your arsenal, because when it's used correctly, this shot can be so deadly. But first, who is this guy on the screen? If you're someone who's been following the pro pickleball scene recently, you may recognize him. This guy bursted into the pro scene back in May 2023 and very quickly caught the attention of the pickleball world by beating the world #1 player at the time, Ben Johns, in a singles match by winning 2 games out of 3. That win over Ben Johns was like activating some kind of cheat code for his pickleball career, because ever since then, this guy has been just popping off in singles tournaments and more recently also in his doubles tournaments too. Only a year and a half of being a pro, he has already won 1 PPA men's doubles gold, 1 PPA singles gold, 1 PPA singles silver, and 1 PPA singles bronze. And he is still only 18 years old at the time of this recording. And his name is Quang Duong, and his full name is Duong Thanh Nguyen. I know that I've completely butchered his name, so if you speak Vietnamese, please help me out here by correcting me in the comments down below. Duong is his family name, Thanh is his middle name, and his first name is Quang. Now I did do a little bit of research on this. What I learned was that when you say or write someone's full name in Vietnamese, the family name comes first, then followed by the middle name, then last, your first name. This is something that's actually quite common amongst East Asian countries, such as Mongolia, Korea, and traditionally in Japan, and any Chinese-speaking countries such as China, Taiwan, and Singapore. So for example, my first name is Jiang, and my last name is Liu. People would call me Liu Jiang in China, but here in the West, my name would actually be called Jiang Liu. That's enough about names. Let's switch back to pickleball. And the first question is, why should you want to learn the two-handed backhand drive? Well, here's what I think. Firstly, it just looks really cool, at least for me. If you can do this shot well, it'll make you look better than you are. As a duper 3.6 myself, I need every bit of that to boost my self-confidence on the court. And secondly, many players, especially the newer players, don't know how to be offensive with their backhand. If you hit a ball that's attackable to their backhand, they either have to run around the ball to drive the ball with their forehand, or in most cases, they're forced to do a drop shot from their backhand. If your opponents figure out that you cannot attack the ball very well with your backhand, then it makes your backhand a very good target for them, since they don't have to worry about being attacked. So being able to drive the ball with your backhand and apply pressure to the other team is definitely something that the players should learn, especially as you transition from the 4-0 to 4-5 level. Third reason, the fundamentals of the two-handed backhand drive actually translates very well into what's needed for the two-handed backhand return and the two-handed backhand speed up, with some minor differences. By getting good at this shot, it's also going to help you getting better at the other shots as well. Fourth reason, the two-handed backhand drive is a more stable shot than a one-handed backhand drive due to the fact that you have both hands on the paddle, providing a lot of support and control. And also, it's actually an easier shot to develop compared to the one-handed backhand because you can hit it either with the open or neutral stance. Okay, enough about why. Let's dive right in and look at how Quang Duong does this shot. Again, I'm going to start this analysis by looking at what he's doing with his feet first, like I normally do. Because most of the time, the feet should be moving before anything else does, and it sets the foundation for the rest of the shot. Whenever I'm trying to learn a new shot, I find it very helpful to pay a lot of attention to the footwork. Here, watch carefully how the first thing he does is that he pivots on his non-dominant foot, and then he crosses his dominant foot over in front of his left foot. And he does so by pushing off his body with his right foot while having his left foot anchored to the ground. By doing so, his shoulders naturally turn sideways, immediately putting him into a neutral stance. So why does he pivot first? To answer this question, let's rewind a little bit and observe a few other things that were happening as he was pivoting. Watch as he was pivoting, his upper body was rotating, essentially doing a unit turn, allowing him to open up his paddle and get prepared for the shot. I can't stress enough about how important early preparation is in pickleball. One of the key reasons why a lot of people struggle with their ground strokes in pickleball is due to the lack of shot preparation. In particular, a lot of people are just late with their preparation. This is actually something that I've covered extensively in some of my previous videos, such as how to hit a return and how to master the forehand drive. If you missed them, I highly recommend that you go check them out after this video. Now, as soon as he finishes the pivot, he has already established a wide base with his feet in neutral stance with his paddle pointing to the side. Keep in mind that all of this preparation were completed within this one simple pivot movement and before the ball even bounced. This gained him so much time to finish rest of the preparation and set up for the drive shot. Let's continue and see what he does next. The incoming ball is quite shallow, so he takes a small shuffle step towards the ball in order to close the gap, then followed by a lunge step before he drives the ball. Again, good early preparation which gives him a lot of time to set up for the shot. The lunge step here is actually very important because it gives him a forward momentum as he hits the ball, allowing him to generate more power with his drive. Now, because of the forward momentum, his body weight is almost completely transferred to his front leg, and watch how his back leg is not supporting any of the body weight throughout the swing. So this is only possible because the incoming ball is quite shallow and he was able to step into the ball, creating that forward momentum. Of course, this is a very ideal scenario for doing a drive shot. There are times when you get pushed back because the ball is too deep. In this case, you may not be able to generate any forward momentum, and when you hit the ball, your body weight may be evenly distributed between both of your feet. And in some extreme cases, when you get pushed so far back, you could be loading most of your body weight on your back foot during this shot. If you're just starting to learn this shot, try focusing on driving the shallower and the higher balls. Those will be the easiest balls to drive, and you can also step into them to create more forward momentum as you drive the ball to get that extra pace. Now, the next phase of the drive shot is what I consider to be the hardest part, which is also the part that most people focus on when they learn drive shot in general. Because the next phase is all about the timing and the hand-eye coordination. Even if you don't have the perfect leg drive, body rotation, wrist lag, and a swing path, it's not the end of the world. If you get your timing right and hit the ball with a sweet spot of your paddle and contacting the ball with the right angle, you can still hit a decent drive. Of course, it may not get you a winner every time. Keep in mind that in pickleball, a lot of the time your goal for a drive shot is not to rip a winner. Instead, it's a setup shot for your fifth shot drop, or causing your opponent to pop up, allowing your partner to move up and crush out the kitchen. But why do I say this is the hardest phase? And this is because there are so many variables that can happen during this phase that requires you to make decisions and adjustments quickly. Things like the height of the ball, spin on the ball, how deep or shallow the ball is, the speed of the ball, also where the ball is coming from and which direction you want to hit the ball. All of these variables can have an impact on the timing of your swing, the height of the contact point, and what your swing path may look like. It can be different for every shot. Unfortunately, there's no shortcut to this. You have to go out there and rip lots and lots of balls to develop a feel for the timing that works for you. Now, as for myself, after spending many hours analyzing forehand and backhand drive shots from various pros, I see that most of them tend to start a forward swing right before the ball peaks, and they make contact with the ball either at the peak or right after the ball peaks. And I discussed the reasons extensively in my previous videos where I analyzed my draw partner's forehand drive. Definitely go check that video out if you would like to know more. In a nutshell, striking the ball at the peak or close to the peak makes the timing easier, and for this reason, I usually use this as a rule of thumb when I drive the ball. Now, one very important thing to note here is that as you make the forward swing, most of the power and pace is actually going to be coming from the non-dominant hand. So if you're a right-handed player, then you should be using your left hand to swing the paddle forward. Alternatively, if you're a left-handed player, then you should be using your right hand to generate the power and pace and swing that paddle forward. Your dominant hand in this shot is really just there to provide additional support and making the contact more stable. The other job of your dominant hand, which I don't think people talk enough about, is that it allows you to achieve better consistency. It does so by limiting the movement of your non-dominant hand during the swing and forcing you to rotate your hips more. This actually reminds me of how the golf swing works, where the arm closer to the ball is always kept very straight throughout the entire swing, giving the golfer much needed consistency and stability at the point of contact. If you pay close attention to Quang Duong's swing here, watch how there's very little movement from his right arm throughout the swing. There was a slight natural elbow bend on his right arm as his paddle approaches the ball. Other than that, most of the movement just came from the rotation of his shoulders and hips. As he makes contact with the ball, he lets the paddle swing through smoothly and finish above his right shoulder. Then his lower body uncoils itself. Notice how he was pivoting on his right foot as he brings his left foot forward, allowing him to recover balance and also reduce the stress on his body due to hip rotation. The entire movement was a single continuous smooth motion, maximizing the energy transferred from his movement to the ball, and this is only possible if you have a relaxed upper body. Another thing I think Quang Duong does particularly well is how he manages to maintain his body height until he finishes making contact with the ball. This is important for achieving a better consistency by reducing variations to his swing path during the shot. A lot of the time when players mishit the ball, it's because of too much unnecessary up and down body movement, which not only introduces too many variables to your swing path, but also makes it harder for our eyes to track the ball. So if you can, when you're practicing this shot, try minimizing any up and down movement to your body. If we go back and watch the swing again, the only movement you'll see is him moving forward due to his forward momentum, and also his hip and shoulder rotations, which ultimately drives his arm forward to hit the ball. Let's look at his next shot. Again, the first thing he does after the subtle split step is to pivot his body to face the left where the ball is going. In the process of doing so, he completes the unit turn, then followed by the backswing while making final adjustment steps with his feet to prepare himself for the shot. Notice this time he got pulled wide and the ball was quite deep as well, so he didn't manage to push himself forward with the back leg to generate that extra forward momentum like he did in the previous shot. Instead, he was forced to remain stationary with a lot of his body weight loaded on his back leg. In order to compensate for the lack of forward momentum, Quang did a subtle leg drive with his back leg to accelerate his hip rotation in order to maximize the power of this shot. And this is why you see his back leg being momentarily suspended in the air. Again, very minimal up and down body movement throughout the swing. Contact point right at the peak of the bounce. Then he lets his paddle swing through, finishing above his right shoulder as his lower body uncoils to regain balance. Here's a rare look at how Quang Duong missed a two-handed backhand drive. The ball came in very low this time, making it a difficult shot to drive, and here's why. Again, the first thing he did was pivoting, but watch this time how low his body had to get down in order to drive the low ball like this. His back knee was almost touching the core, and his back leg was not doing too much more than just being there supporting his body weight, not adding any power to the shot. It's just not a comfortable position to properly rotate your hips. You can see throughout this shot that his hip rotations were severely restricted by his body position. As he hits the ball, watch how the contact point is now leveled with his front knee compared to the previous two shots where the contact points were a few inches above his front knee. Another thing to know about driving a low ball is that if you give too much power, the ball will likely go high or even go out because you're hitting the ball from low to high in order to get over the net. So it's very hard to keep the drive low and still give it enough power, and as a result of all the unfavorable factors, he ended up missing the drive down the net, which was unfortunate. And in my personal opinion, this is where perhaps a drop shot would have been a better shot selection for him in that given scenario. But hindsight is always 20/20. If you learned something from this video, please feel free to share it with your friends and family. Share your thoughts down below in the comments. As always, thank you for your time. I hope to see you again in the next video.